So, wrong project. Hey, what's up guys, Christopher here, and today we have an awesome course on Harry Potter and specifically how to pull off a cinema level Lumos spell effect. Let's take a look from our latest short film concept, Hogwarts Crypt of the Forbidden One.
Lumos.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but I thought that was really sick. And it's really simple and straightforward to pull off once you know what to look for. So let's get started with some basics ones. Now, this is a light-based effect. So the darker your scene is, the better it's gonna look. Now, for mine specifically, it was literally complete and utter darkness, and that's what I wanted for the concept. For you, it might be something different, but remember, the darker it is, the cooler light-based effects look on camera. Now, the second thing to look out for is specifically the light source, because obviously, whether you have a cool prop or not, when you make a spell, nothing happens. The way we fake this is by creating a light source in the direction of the wand itself as the talent makes the move, and the light comes on and it illuminates from the direction that the light source would be in our fantasy-based project. Now, the last and third thing to talk about is a film prop itself, and in this case, a wand. Now, this one is an official Harry Potter wand. This specific one is from Sirius Black, but of course you can use anything, including something different. But this is a big thing when it comes to cinematic projects, and specifically selling to your audience that what they're watching is authentic. That has to do with film props. Now, if you want to learn everything about where to find or make awesome film props on an ultimate budget, then make sure to check out my Gorilla Filmmaker program, where I'll take you step by step through all things filmmaking. And actually, guys, this is a great chance to be real. If you want to create projects like these that feel epic and captivating, but also set you apart from the crowd, then you need to join me in my Gorilla Filmmaker program. Why? Because today, anyone can make an average video anywhere at any time. But as a Gorilla Filmmaker, you're not just going to be making average videos. You're going to be making film art. With over a decade on the field, I worked on films, high-octane commercial projects, and viral videos. And through all of those, I created a set of ultimate techniques and tricks when it comes to filmmaking. And this is what you experience when you watch one of my projects. That is the difference. So you see, through these tailor-made courses, I can take you from zero to film hero in a matter of days, showing you every single trick I have in my book, and of course, how to use it. Because guys, one thing has been true throughout history: knowledge is power, so make sure to use it. From concept to production to editing and absolutely everything in between, this is your one-stop platform to learn and become a filmmaker like a pro. So check the link down in the description for more awesome info, and make sure to use the code GFMR15 for 15% off when you join me as a Gorilla Filmmaker. And with that said, let's fire up After Effects and check out how to create the epic Lumos spell effect. So here we are, guys, with the composition ready to go, and I'm gonna show you all the steps that this effect takes place, starting with, of course, our initial footage, which in this case, it looks kind of like that, but to be fair, it has a levels adjustment to really make it black. So if I turn that off, this is what the actual original clip looks like, and it has been scaled down to a 21:9 composition of how I want the character to kind of like take up in terms of screen space. If I actually open my original clip, in this case C6834, and I kind of like double click on this one and I start scrubbing through, you can see the actual recording, and you can see on the side my assistant kind of like moving the light around, and all we have is a very black studio with a black screen, and the action takes place. So we have the spell and my assistant kind of like wiggles the light, so we have a natural light illumination, and that is that. We bring that in, drop it into After Effects, we put a levels adjustment, which is basically effects, color correction, and levels, and we just really crush the blacks to make it look actually black, because the camera kind of like, records in a very high dynamic range and codec to give you as much flexibility in post. So we've trimmed our clip right here, and you can see it, how it looks without anything on it. Now, what I also did, if I double press on this and hit T, which brings up the opacity, is that I animated the opacity from 0 to 100 when the spell happens. That just gives a few frames where the light just gradually appears as the spell is meant to appear as well. So we're going to close that, go back. Now, the first thing that you need to do when it comes to these things is actually track your wand, because whatever you apply, you want it to be following the movement of the wand. And that's one of the things that make this realistic. So if I put this on full and then I zoom in here, this is our wand, yeah? So I'm actually going to go to 200%. The way you actually do this is you select your clip, then you right click and you go to track and stabilize, and then you select track motion. This is going to bring up a track point, and all you do is place it at the tip of the wand, and then you adjust the outer kind of like square depending on how much movement that has. If I press play now, what the program is going to do is start cycling through, as you can see, and track that wand in space, which is great. After it's done, you go to Effects, you go to Layer, New, Null Object, you create one of those, and then you hit Edit Target, you select that null object over here, you press OK, and then you press Apply. And then what we have here, which has already been done, as I want to show you guys, we have a null object, the yellow layer, and as you can see, if I scrub through, it's following the wand around in space. Now we're ready to start applying the Lumos effect. Now, the way I do this is by going to Layer, New, Solid, make it black, and rename it Lumos. And this is what we have right here. Then I go to my Effects, Video, Copilot, and I select Optical Flares. Now, this is a paid plugin, which is actually not essential, but I'm going to show you what it does anyways. If I turn this off, I simply created an orb of light as an optical flare. Now, this is not necessary. You can get around it without using this paid plugin, because all it is a orb of light. Now, if I create another layer, New, Solid, let's make this one white, press OK. Then I'm going to select my ellipse tool, and I'm simply going to make a little ball right there. And then I'm going to press F on the keyboard to bring up the feathering mask. I can start feathering it out. I can duplicate this many times. Let's see, let's make it a bit bigger, like so, and then feather it even more, and so and so. I can duplicate that, do that again, and keep going from there. Now, it doesn't look as great, but it can be made to look great, if that makes sense. So you just have to spend the time to create the illumination without using the plugin. But since I have it, I want to show you guys exactly what I use to get the results that I get, because that way you have all the information ready to go. If I try to fake it and tell you, oh, you can also get away with this and that and so forth, I don't feel I'm being honest with you guys. Because when you see something cool and you want to make it happen as well, the best thing is for someone to show you exactly how it's made. So, back to our clip, we have the Lumos spell, And like I said, optical flares, went to options. Let's open that really quickly. And we have the glow sphere ball, which we have without saving. Yeah, no worries. And we have it. And then we took it, right? And we placed it on the tip of the wand. Here's what you do next. You click your Lumos layer down here. You put it to screen mode, right? And then you're going to take this parent tool and you're going to link it to the null. If you don't see this, just toggle your switches down here, but you should always be able to see this, right? So just click it, hold it down, and link it to your null object, and it will tell you right here, null 1. What that does now, guys, I'm sure you guessed it, is as we move through, you can see that that orb of light, that optical flare, follows the wand. I duplicated this 3 times just to get the correct illumination. And the reason why I duplicate the layers is because I have greater and easier control when it comes to the opacity and overall look versus just trying to make one layer work out. If I zoom out, guys, you can see that at the beginning, we don't have it. And then as the spell happens, the orb occurs, which is really cool. Now, what we have here, if I change it back to quarter resolution, because we're working with 4K and visual effects, you can see that you can see the basis that we started with. We talked about our clip, we talked about our what light technique we used, and now you see how to apply the light on the tip of the wand by tracking it, which looks pretty cool, but we can't stop here. We need to build up the atmosphere of this spell. The way we do this is because we're working with such a dark scene, is I brought in an atmospheric smoke asset, which I'm going to bring right here, guys. I'm going to hit T for opacity again. I'm going to put it to 100% so you can actually see it. So what we have here is a smoke asset that is playing throughout, as you guys can see right here. And I placed that on top of my footage and overall spell to give it a bit of atmosphere. Now, the reason why I set it to 15% is because I want that to be very subtle. And this is another great tip for you guys. When you're working with visual effects, it's very easy to throw a lot of stuff on, but not actually think about adjusting their effect. With the transparency control, you can adjust how visible they are. And if I left the smoke to 100%, it will start looking fake, because it doesn't really work out, because of course it was not there to begin with. So by putting it to 15%, even though I'm sure when you're watching this video, you won't be able to tell, trust me, it does make a difference. So we put a smoke asset, and of course you can put any smoke asset you have. Then we have a few more things, which is a lens flare that is organic. And what do I mean by that? It's an actual recording of a lens flare as light passes through a lens that has some form of debris. And what that does is, if we hit T again, you can see I've set it to 10%, but I'm going to put it to 100% so you can see what we're talking about. You have a lens element reacting to light. And this is pre-recorded, and we can use it and drop it in our scene. What that does is, as the wand and the Lumos spell wiggle around, this gets the impression that the lens that is filming this is getting affected by the Lumos spell, and as a return, it casts this kind of like flaring within the lens. This greatly helps sell the authenticity of the effect. Again, simply we dropped it in, set the opacity to 10, so it's more subtle. And of course, this will depend on your scene and your needs, but I'm showing you exactly how to pull it off. And then we're good to go. Now we start building it. Lastly, when it comes to the cinematic, we have one last effect to put on. And if I isolate it here, put it to full, and bring the opacity back to 100%, it is some fire embers. Now, what those do is that they just put a bit of, magic to the frame and to our scene, because again, it's so dark. By having those fire embers just kind of like floating through space, it really helps build the fantasy element of the scene. Again, All of these are pre-rendered assets you can find from many online stores. You just have to have the thinking to look for them and incorporate them in your scene. This is what I find really great with sharing these tutorials and courses with you guys, is I'm showing you exactly what the thinking is behind the choice, because you will have to make choices when it comes to your projects. So when we turn all of these things on, we are left with a complete visual effect scene. I'm actually need to put this back to what it was at 25%, because again, subtlety is key. We can turn off the null layer, and we basically have a Lumos spell. Now here's where I take it to another kind of like step, because most people will be happy with this, but we can take it one step further that is really going to enhance the final look. We can create a new adjustment. And we do that by going to Layer, New, Adjustment Layer. And we name this layer by hitting right click and rename. We can name this Distortion, which, as you can see, of course, I've already done. We have another plugin from Video Copilot, and that is called Heat Distortion. Now, what that plugin does is what it says. It incorporates heat distortion, because if you have some form of fire or explosion, it's a great plugin to use to get the heat dissipation effect. But you can also use it for fantasy elements. And the way we use it is we place it to smoke. We put the distortion amount, kind of how to dial down as the spell goes through, but you can do that yourself depending on your scene. But we start with something quite high, let's say 20. We set the heat amount, but the key is to set the noise scale to 1000. What that does is it really kind of like makes the heat distortion pattern really big. So you don't see like little wiggles and little motions. You actually see one big one kind of like distorting space. And I find that works great when it comes to fantasy elements and implementing this plugin. Now, the great thing about it is that it just creates a distortion of the image, and it really helps sell the fact that some form of force occurred within the scene. That's why we use it. And trust me, it makes such a massive difference. The last bit I do is I put a radial blur effect, which is very simple to do. You just go to Effects, Blur and Sharpen, and you hit radial blur, and you set it to zoom. What that does, if we actually do something crazy, let's say we put out 25, it just creates a zooming motion blur effect, almost, if we can call it that, based on when you place the center. Now, again, this is going to take a while to load because it's really heavy. So many assets kind of like building up. We have the Lumos flares happening, so it's going to take a bit for the program. Okay, guys, so I actually had to create a new adjustment layer because the program couldn't handle, and I had to put in the point after the spell happened just to show you what it does. So this is with the effect on, and if I turn it off, you can see the difference. Basically, it creates a motion blur effect as if you're zooming in something. And this distortion that keeps the center more clear than the edges gives the impression of a very fast impact of force, right? The only thing we have to do is to animate its amount by hitting the keyframe and set it from 0, which means nothing, to 10, or whatever numerical value works for you, and then animate it back down to 0 again, which is what you see here with these keyframes. And that is it, guys. As a visual effect composition, this now is ready. What is left is to do color grading and scene grading, just as we talk about in the Gorilla Filmmaker program, where I show you all of my techniques on how to create amazing color grading projects, but of course, the differentiation between the color grading steps and what I call scene grading steps. So do make sure to check out the Gorilla Filmmaker program and join me if you want to learn about those and other things, including like why use a green screen, why use a black screen, how to create props or how to create costumes and everything else filmmaking, as I talked to you guys about at the beginning. If we now play this together with a combination of color grading and scene grading, and of course sound design, this is what we get.
Lumos.
And that is it, guys. I've shown you every single layer step that has went into creating the visual effect of Lumos, and make sure to tune in for the next one, because we're going to take a look at how to create an amazing magic, spell, circle, burst ground effect when the character in the short film shatters a magical stone. Okay guys, so that's a wrap for this course on how to create the Lumos spell effect in a real cinematic way. Make sure to spend the time and reflect on the information shared today, and of course, when you find the time or the right project, make sure to put it into use. If you want access to the best filmmaking coursework platform, then make sure to check out Gorilla Filmmaker, where I teach you everything you need to know about filmmaking, and specifically my style, Gorilla Filmmaker. With that said, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Till then, stay awesome and creative.